Welcome to the Marshfield Zoning Board of Appeals, Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023, at 6:30 p.m. meeting. The agenda is a hybrid meeting, so if you're dialing in on a phone, please use *6 to mute and unmute yourself. Mark's not going to participate, so we don't have to do a roll call. And Bob, did you look at the Flavin one? Do we need to do that, or should we just work our way through this?
Which one?
Caswell Street. There was a variance.
You don't need a variance.
Right.
You get a special permit.
Yeah, they do, but so the special permit ran out too?
Special permit's 2 years, yeah.
Okay.
It was after the COVID date, so you gotta renew that.
Special permit was for the addition.
It wasn't for the,
It wasn't for the town. That was, they still have a 3-year rule.
Right, yeah. So we're being taped by MCTV, and we will start with A 2335, Sherry and Michael Matthew. The petitioners are seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to raise the existing structure and rebuild a new 44-foot by 26-foot 6, 2.5-story dwelling, a 26-foot by 20-foot 6 by 16 rear deck with a 4-foot landing up and the stairs to grade, and a 4-foot landing and a 38-foot walkway connecting the rear deck to, with the stairs to grade, 11-foot 6 by 4-foot rear second-story balcony, and an 8-foot by 4-foot front balcony on the attic floor of the property located at 10 Charlotte Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel K130506, and is located in the R3 zoning district. Name and address for the record.
I'm Dick Rockwood. I did the architectural work for Sherry Matthew and Mike Matthews. At 10 Charlotte Street here. So we are going to tear down the house, raise and rebuild. The house has to be on pilings. It's in a velocity zone. We've elevated the house so that we can drive under the house, but I still meet all my height requirements, my 2.5 story and overall height of the roof. We're rebuilding decks. What we do have on this property is a deck on the right-hand side as you're looking towards the ocean. Yeah, right there. So that's an existing walkway that they have now with their house. It gets them to walk on the sideline, and we wanted to elevate that, or rebuild it, I should say. It is part of our existing footprint. And that was part of what we wanted to do with our footprint for this house. And I believe you have the architectural drawings in here that show the elevations and the floor plans. So it's a very tight lot. We have our driveway to come in. They do want to be able to park under the house. There's a fence at that right-of-way road, so that does give them the room to turn in and turn back out where it says right-of-way. So the property pretty much stops at that right-of-way, where the W is in right-of-way there. It says 10-foot right-of-way. But they do go in and pull on that, and then they can pull out and then, pull back forward as they enter out. So it's pretty much where the existing house footprint is. And that's what we'd like to do.
All right. Andrew, other than what you've given us, do you have anything to add? I know that.
No.
Go ahead.
No, not anything more than what I've provided in my written comments.
Okay, thank you. Bob, you don't have anything yet?
Nope.
Anything from the board?
I'm good.
Anything from the audience? Seeing that there is not. I move to close Sherry and Michael Matthew, 10 Charlotte Street. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Conley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Haney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
And so I would move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit, subject to the conditions. This project will need to comply with the Marshfield floodplain bylaw and require a demolition permit, a building permit, a certified as-built, and a certificate of occupancy. And we all agree with 1 to 10 on the special permit.
Yes.
Yes, I do. To raise the existing structure and rebuild a new 44-foot by 26.6, 2.5 stories dwelling, a 26-foot 6 by 16-foot rear deck with a 4-foot landing and stairs to grade, a 4-foot landing and 38-foot walkway connecting to the rear deck with the stairs to grade, an 11-foot 6 by 4-foot rear second-story balcony and an 8-foot 4 by front balcony on the attic floor on the property located at 10 Charlotte Street, which is shown on a site plan dated April 12th, 2023 by Stenbeck and Taylor, and in a progress set of plans by Rockwood Design dated May 20th, 2023. 9 pages since the proposed work shown on the plans and described as that the filings meets the criteria for the set forth in 305-1012 of the zoning bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Corbin has the aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Kelly, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you. Good night.
So we have Barbara Saad.
He should be on Zoom.
Well,
That's me, Rick's on.
2336 Barbara Saad.
90 Seaview.
Yes, Rick Savant, with Stenbeck and Taylor, representing the staff.
All right, Rick, let me read it in. The petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 and 305-1301 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a new 28-foot by 28-foot garage with breezeway, a 12-foot by 48-foot deck, and a 14-foot by 12-foot addition on the property located at 90 Seaview Avenue, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel G160806 and is located in the R1 zoning district. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Brian. So yes, the staff at 90 Seaview Ave are proposing some new work to the existing home. The existing structure is non-conforming to the front and left side setback currently. All the new work, the garage, the rear deck, and the proposed addition at the back left corner will meet the zoning setback requirements, but we're here just because the existing home is currently non-conforming. I did see in the advertisement there that for 1301, which is what the inland wetland district, there is some section of inland wetland district on the property, but none of the work is within that district. So it's just a special permit for altering an existing non-conforming home.
All righty. Does anyone else need to say anything here? Andrew, I have just what's in your notes is good, right?
Yep, but I just echoed what Rick said. Everything is, that it's just that the structure is not conforming, but all the proposed additions conform to all the bylaw requirements.
Thank you. And you're good, Bob, right?
Yes.
Anyone on the board have questions?
I'm good.
Anything from the audience? Anything from the audience out there? Nope, seeing that there's none. I move that we close 2336 Barbara Saad, 90 Seaview Avenue. Do I have a second? All those in favor?
Corbin has the aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Kelly, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
And I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit subject to the conditions. This project will require a building permit, a certified as-built, and a certificate of occupancy. And we all agree with 1 to 10 in the special permit, which we do. And to construct a new 28-foot by 28-foot garage with breezeway, a 12-foot by 48-foot deck, and a 14-foot by 12-foot addition on the property located at 90 Seaview Avenue, as shown on a site plan by Stenbeck and Taylor Incorporated, dated April 5th, 2023, Richard Savant, PLS, and architectural plans by Herzog Architecture dated February 7th, 2023. Since the proposed work is shown on the plans and described in the filings meets the criteria set forth in 305-1012 of the zoning bylaw. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Rose Hunsley, aye. Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeny, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So we have 2337 Michelle and Brian Balconi.
Hello.
Going. The petitioners are seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct an 8-foot by 16-foot front porch on the property located at 40 Riverside Circle, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel D190305, located in R1 zoning district. Go ahead. How you
Hi,
doing?
we submitted an application for permission to add a porch to our home, all still within the setbacks.
Okay. Do you have anything, Andrew, up there, or? Thank you.
Nothing more than I put in the comments.
Okay.
It's the same as last time, the structure is not conforming just on this one side, but everything that they're proposing to do conforms with the required setbacks.
All righty. You good, Bob?
I am, yes.
Everyone, any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience?
Just the shed, right?
Oh, we won't endorse the shed. All right, so I move that we close 2337 Michelle and Brian Balconi, 40 Riverside Circle. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Rose Hunsley, aye. Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeny, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
And I move that the board vote to grant the petitioner's request for a special permit subject to the following conditions. This project will require a building permit, a certified as-built, and a certificate of occupancy to construct an 8-foot by 16-foot front porch on the property located on 40 Riverside Circle, as shown on the building location plan by Millbrook Survey dated October 19th, 2021, and revised April 4th, 2023, since the proposed work shown on the plans and described in the filings meets the criteria set forth in section 305-1012 of the zoning bylaws. And we all agree that special permit 10 regulations, 10 pieces this meets.
I do.
I do.
Do we have a deed for this? Nancy, do we have a deed? I would say yes. You do? Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Rose Hunsley, aye. Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Conway, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeny, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Um, 2338 Colin Yanovich. Petitioner is seeking a special permit in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code to construct a 13-foot 6 by 26-foot 3 two-story addition at the rear of the dwelling on property located at 15 Virginia Street, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel L040815 and is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Sean Conley. I'm here as a builder representing Colin Yanovich. We are trying to build a two-story addition to their existing family dwelling off the back of an existing non-conforming structure on the lot. So that everything for the new existing dwelling is going to conform to the new setbacks.
So it's pretty straightforward again, Andrew, obviously from your notes.
With the exception of the deck.
Yes.
So the deck, it's over 4 feet off the ground. So a deck over 4 feet off the ground can only encroach the rear setback by 2 feet. And so this is actually approaching the rear setback by almost 6 feet. The deck really, would only be able to, because it's 30 feet already to the structure, would only be, if it's that high off the ground, would only be able to be 2 feet out, like a balcony deck, without a variance. So you'd have to issue a variance in order to grant that, because there's currently no existing nonconformity as to the rear setback. So you'd be creating a nonconformity where there is one.
Okay, so we can approve it without the deck.
The customers do not want the deck anyways.
Okay.
Budget-wise, it wasn't in the,
Alright, so they gotta get rid of the deck.
The deck can get canceled off anyways.
All right, that works.
They can't afford
There
it.
you go.
All right, anything else, Bob?
No, I agree with Andrew's assessment.
Anything else from the board? Audience? Seeing that there's none. Move that we close 2338 Colin Yanovich, 15 Virginia Street. We have a second from Heidi, all in favor?
Lorenzi, aye. Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi, Conley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
I move that the board vote to grant petitioner's request for a special permit subject to the following conditions. This project will require a special building permit, a certified as-built, and a certificate of occupancy. And do I just have to say that the 4-foot deck in the rear is not included?
The applicant has withdrawn the request for the rear deck, cantilever deck.
The applicant has withdrawn the rear cantilever deck. And we all agree, special permit 1 to 10.
Yes.
2, so let me continue with reading here, if I can. To construct a 13-foot 6 by 26-foot 3 2-story addition on the rear of the dwelling on the property located on 15 Virginia Street as shown on architectural plans by AJA Engineering, Abdul Azim. 21 pages including renderings and a plot plan dated on April 18th, 2023. Grady Consulting, Timothy Bennett, PLS. The proposal work to be shown as described in the filings meets the criteria set forth in section 305-1012 of the zoning bylaws. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Lorenzi, aye. Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi, Conley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good night.
What's it? Yeah. Is it okay, we'll do the Flavins first. Are the Flavins here?
They should be on Zoom.
Hi. Hi. All right, 2340, Teresa and Stephen Flavin. Petitioner is seeking a variance in accordance with 305-1012 of the Marshfield Municipal Code for relief from 305-1109, C7, and or 305-610 table of dimensional and density regulations, minimum lot area, and a special permit under the 305-1109 to create an accessory apartment within the recently completed 11-foot by 28-foot addition on the property located at 252 Caswell Street, which is further identified on assessor's maps as being on parcel L053113 and is located in the R3 zoning district. Go ahead. This is just a... We can see the plans. This is just a straight,
Mr. Chairman?
yeah,
The applicant has constructed the addition.
It's already done.
Required the variance and special permit before, so now they're looking to convert it into an accessory apartment.
right.
And because the new bylaw that passed at this year's town meeting hasn't been approved yet, all you're really doing is considering whether they're entitled to an accessory apartment.
Accessory apartment, which I think...
What they're actually looking for relief from is the required square footage, so this lot only has 5,000 square feet, and the bylaw says that
10,000.
for an R3, you can only have an accessory apartment if you have 10,000 square feet, so that's what they're looking for the variance from, is from the lot area requirement of the accessory apartment bylaw.
Okay. Do you have any problem with it, Andrew?
No, not at all.
Okay.
This is one of the ones where I'm encouraging people to go for a variance because I think this is something that needs to change.
I agree.
A lot of people feel like they needed to change. I had a lot of people approaching me saying, what can we do? And my only answer is you can apply for a variance. So that's kind of why we're here.
Well, as I understand, it's a special permit, not a variance. They were given a variance previously. This is a special permit, so they don't need to meet the standard for the granting of a
Yeah,
variance.
but when they asked to use their addition for an accessory apartment, there are minimum lot area requirements. So it's a kind of a new issue that's triggered by the fact they want to use the addition as an accessory apartment. Then the minimum lot area in the R3 is 10,000 square feet, they only have 5. So they,
If we permitted them to do it, isn't implicit in that permission that they can use what we allowed them to do?
but it was for an addition, now it's for an accessory apartment.
So in the decision, it does state that it was for an in-law apartment for their son. I have the decision.
But they hadn't applied for it yet. It was in discussion. They did not submit an application for an apartment as there'd been discussion during that. They didn't ask for it because they were then affected by the 3-year waiting period. So they didn't want to call it an accessory apartment at the time.
So pretty much,
These folks were
it's
caught,
already there.
these folks were caught right in the midst of the bylaw change. So they
And they're
literally were doing everything right. They applied for the variance and did they did for the addition and took care of all of that because they have a seriously small non-conforming lot. So they got to that point. Now they're complying with what the bylaw and their permit had said, which was to wait for the 3 years, but also now the bylaw has changed. So they want to legitimize an accessory apartment with a special permit, but because they don't have the required lot area, they're seeking a variance from that requirement so that they can get a special permit. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I understand it, Andrew. It's just, to me, we asked them to play by the rules, and it's like the rules changed that they were following. And, I don't know,
These rules were still in play, you know? Even if they didn't need a variance in the first place, and they didn't have to wait for the 3 years, they would have needed at the time to get a variance from the lot area requirement. That never changed.
So there was discussion this year at town meeting as to whether to eliminate that requirement. And the planning board was talking about that, and there was going to be a further revision to the bylaw, and they withdrew that request because they're going to be studying this again as to whether these lot area requirements are going to remain. So they're again caught in a potential revision that might come up in the spring. So I agree with Andrew. I think they still are required to have a variance from the lot area requirement.
So for right now, we can give them the variance based on the lot
If
area.
the board is convinced that the applicants meet that requirement, they can give a variance from the lot area requirement and a special permit,
And the special permit for the,
accessory apartment.
I'll be struggling for the words to get through this one. Well, I'll be mimicking what you say. So, anyone else have questions on this? Anyone from the board, audience? All right, I move that we close Teresa and Stephen Flavin, 252 Caswell Street. Do I have a second? All in favor?
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Heidi Conley, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane.
Aye. All right, Bob, let's go. What are we doing here? The
All
variance
right,
first?
I'll frame a motion, not because I'm making the finding, but
Right, and now, what do I just adopt what you say?
you can adopt that motion. So you're moving in the affirmative that the board grant a variance from the provisions of section 305 and 1109C7, the minimum lot size in the R3 zone, 10,000 square feet, to allow the applicant to add an accessory apartment in the existing altered dwelling at 252 Careswell Street, based on the findings that the applicant has met the requirements for a variance set forth in section 305-10-11.
Second,
All in favor?
Brian, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Now the special permit.
Did I write a motion on the special permit?
For the ditto.
Ditto.
Well, you'd be moving to, that the motion would be that the board grant a special permit
For
to
the-
the applicants
Yeah,
pursuant to section 305-1109 to create a residential accessory apartment in the existing owner-occupied dwelling, subject to the standard special permit conditions that we have, based on a finding that the applicant made. The applicant's proposed accessory apartment meets the review criteria in section 305-1109C.
Second,
all in favor?
Brian, aye.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you. All right. Now we have 2339, Kevin McDonough. In accordance with 305-1009 of the Marshfield Municipal Code, petitioner is seeking an appeal of the building commissioner's determination that this lot does not meet the minimum lot depth requirements needed to construct a single-family residence, and if necessary, a variance under 305-1011 for relief from 305-610, table of dimensional and density regulations, minimum lot depth on the property located at 53 Juniper Road, which is further identified on the assessor's maps as being on parcel I-150313, located in the R3 zoning district. Before we go up, so we can't decide this tonight, we leave the record open.
Well, there's an allegation, my understanding is from an abutter, that they didn't get notice in sufficient time for them to have their counsel present to articulate their position, so, but if, I'm convinced based upon what Ms. Perica has provided me that the notice was properly published in the newspaper, although the notice didn't go out at least 14 days before the decision, but that's not actually the requirement of the statute, but I would recommend that the board open the hearing, hear from the applicant. If the abutters choose to speak, they can. If they would like to have the hearing continued to the next hearing, I would recommend the board leave the record open and continue the hearing to that date before closing in order to make sure that we accommodate that issue.
Okay. So go ahead.
All right. Jeff DeLisi, I'm here with Kevin McDonough, the applicant. Just at the outset, if there's been something submitted in writing to the board from an abutter, I would appreciate a copy. So Kevin, at one point in time, owned two lots which were identified as lots 27 and 28 on Juniper Road on a land court plan from the 1920s. The property is presently located in the R3 zoning district, which requires a lot depth of 100 feet. Kevin desired to convey the property to his daughter, but before selling it, he wanted to make certain that he would be able to divide the lot such that, the two lots, such that the redivision of the land would have a house on one lot and a vacant lot which is fully conforming to zoning and buildable separately. And so in 2018, prior to selling the property to his daughter, who's currently the owner, for $398,000, he had a concept plan drawn up by Stenbeck and Taylor, and then he met with the then building inspector, Jim Folkard, to review whether Jim believes that in fact the vacant lot would be fully conforming to the dimensional criteria of the zoning bylaw.
That meeting resulted in a verbal determination from Mr. Folkard that in fact it does. And Kevin had the wherewithal, the good sense to then follow up that meeting with a formal request in writing that the building inspector make a formal written determination to him in 2018. And that determination was in fact made. The purpose for requesting the formal determination, as stated in the text of the letter, was to avoid possible misinterpretations of the spoken word, and before I drop a large sum on engineering plans to take to the land court. So, Mr. Folkard, and in your packet, you have a letter from him dated, I believe, New Year's Eve in the year 2018, which confirms that he believes that the lot is conforming. And that allowed Kevin to then sell the property. His daughter paid $398,000 in reliance on that. And he did the engineering for a buildable lot, had to go to the planning board to divide the land in accordance with that determination, and then had to take that land court plan and submit it to the land court, which took quite a period of time, and this process cost a decent sum of money. Years later, here we are in 2023, and we have a new building inspector, Mr. Stewart, whom I have the utmost respect for, sent a determination that's contrary to Mr. Folkard's prior determination, which essentially said that he does not believe that we meet the lot depth requirement of the zoning bylaw. And so we're appealing that determination, and in the alternative, requesting a variance if necessary, though I don't believe it is necessary, and I hope the board concurs with that. Essentially, there's a couple of reasons that I'm putting forward for the appeal of the determination, and that is, number one, I believe that this matter has been determined already, and I think that Mr. Folkard's determination was consistent with the way this town has interpreted the lot depth and lot width requirements through the years. And I believe Mr. McDonough provided the board with a few examples of that elsewhere in town. But more Socratically, as a lawyer, I think that Andrew failed to apply the second sentence of the definition of lot width. And just to go through it, essentially in this zone, there is a requirement of 100 feet of lot depth and a requirement of 80 feet of lot width. And the definition of lot depth indicates that the requirement is the shortest distance between the front lot line and the rear lot line within a width at least equal to the required lot width. So that brings you to, all right, now we have to measure lot depth through lot width. Let's go to the definition of lot width. And when you get to the definition of lot width, it's the distance between side lot lines as measured parallel to the front lot line at the rear building line and at all points in between. So it's requiring a measurement at the rear building line. And it then goes on to say that no dwelling may be erected or placed unless within a circle of a diameter equal to the required frontage, 80 feet, under section 610, which can be inscribed within the lot lines at some point between the front and rear lot lines. And so the definition of lot width requires that a circle be inscribed on the plan of a diameter of 80 feet in this zone. And when you inscribe that circle on the plan and measure lot depth through the rear of the, through the required lot width, which has to be measured at the rear of the building line, I think we meet the definition. And so I think that Andrew was reading it strictly from the standpoint, the shortest distance between two lines, and not through the circle, which is also required by the definition. So I'm going to actually stop there. I don't want to have to get into a variance discussion unless the board decides that the appeal should be denied.
Andrew, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah. Let's see. Let me just bring up the plan again. So a couple of things here. I totally sympathize with the situation, and I think that it's unfortunate that they were given the wrong information earlier, but I do believe that they were given the wrong information. I'm going to bring up the lot depth definition real quick here, and the lot width definition. So the first thing we're going to look at is the lot depth, the shortest distance between the front line and the rear lot line within a width at least equal to the required lot width. So this is an R3 district, and the required lot width is 80 feet. That's the required frontage as well. So if we go to the plan, we go to the plan, starting from this corner here, if you go 80 feet, you end up about here. Okay, so from that point, lot depth requires the shortest distance from the front lot line to the rear line, and this is the actual rear line, is this diagonal line. So it's the shortest distance that direction. You have to maintain 80 feet. Well, it's about 65 feet if you bring this line out parallel from the other side lot line. And if you're going to maintain that width of 80 feet back from the front lot line, the shortest distance that you're able to maintain that lot width up is 65 feet, not the required 80 feet, right? No, 100 feet, sorry. The required 100 feet, you'd end up being back over here. So essentially this triangle here would be required in order to get the correct lot depth. Now, I do agree that it has the correct lot width. It does meet that width. At the rear building line, which is right here, it has the required lot width. It fits within a building circle of the required lot width. So the only condition, and it's got the correct lot area, everything else about the lot completely conforms to zoning density and dimensional requirements except for that lot depth, and that's just because you cannot extend that lot width consistently back for the of 80 feet for the required 100 feet. You can't maintain that. And the shortest distance between the front lot line and the rear lot line, maintaining the required lot width, is only about 65 feet. So that's why I determined that it didn't have lot depth. And like I said, that's the only condition I feel didn't meet it.
you're just standing where you are, Jeff, with your decision
Yeah, I again.
of the rear lot line.
If it was not necessary, if it was not necessary to incorporate the words within the required lot width, then the town shouldn't have adopted them, right? Like, we have a situation here where, yes, if lot depth, it doesn't say measured consistently, although, you know, it says measure lot depth within required lot width. Lot width requires the circle. When we do that, we're able to achieve the depth. And that's really, you know, it's a question of interpretation. I'd be interested in understanding if the board is aware of any other circumstances where the town has treated it one way or the other, for sake of consistency. But I think that Andrew, when he just talked about the definition of lot width, at the beginning of that, he did not indicate that it needed to be measured with the circle of the diameter of 80 feet. It was only towards the end which said, oh, you got to place the house in it. Well, you have to measure lot width with the circle. And once you do that, you achieve the width at the point of the circle which is furthest from the street. So further down in the lot. Like, so Andrew, if you could put that plan back up. So once you inscribe the circle, it's around this point that the lot width meets the definition, because that's where the circle is located. And so I think that the language of the bylaw, requires the analysis that I walked you through versus Andrew's.
Andrew, can you put up the one that has the circle on it?
So just to be clear, my opinion is that the building circle itself is secondary to those definitions. It just shows where the house can be placed on the lot. That you just have to fit the house within a circle, but the lot still has to meet the lot width and lot depth requirements. And those are the basic density requirements, is the lot width and the lot depth. And then there's an additional requirement that the dwelling may be placed on that lot unless it can fit in a circle. I mean, you can have the lot be twice the required lot width and twice the required lot depth. But then you have to show somewhere on that property that the building is going to fit within a circle that is equal to the diameter of the required lot width.
So just so I'm clear,
Secondary condition.
just so I'm clear, the dwelling would fit in the lot circle, yes or no?
Yes.
And that dwelling would not have any sideline, front line, rear line encroachments?
Agreed. The only condition is the lot depth.
But through the dwelling, it would meet the lot depth requirement. Through the dwelling, which is in the middle of that building circle, it would meet the lot depth requirement. There
is no dwelling relationship to the lot depth. The lot depth is the lot depth. The only thing the dwelling comes into play with is lot width. And the lot width, I told you, complies. It's the lot depth that doesn't comply. There's nothing mentioning the location of the dwelling in the lot depth. There's no mention of the rear building line in the lot depth. You just have to maintain the required lot width for 100 feet in an R3 zone, somewhere between the front line and the rear line. This doesn't do it. And I can show the examples that were brought up in the letter. I can show 2 of them that I agree with, where I feel issued an error. And then the rest of them, I can explain why they do meet the requirements of lot depth, if you'd like to go that route.
Sure, if you could.
Sure. All right, so this is one that I believe was issued in error. This is 21 White's Ferry, and so they have their frontage here. So this is, again, an R3. They would need to take, have 80 feet of lot width, and then maintain that back for 100 feet. And they didn't meet that here. The 100 feet would end up out in this area. So this one, I don't believe met the required lot.
And Andrew, that appears to have a stamp, if my eyes don't fail me, 2009?
That's correct.
And would that be a different building inspector than,
That's just 4 building commissioners ago.
okay.
Is that Mike Clancy?
That's Mike Clancy, yes.
Okay.
Do you have that plan with the building circle?
I was not, this is the foundation as built. This was all I was able to find.
That's all you're looking for?
I mean, I don't know.
No, I'm just
I
curious if that
think
would
anyone might
comply
have
with the
that.
building circle. If that.
Well, it would. I
Yeah.
think that,
No, what I mean by if the
question is,
previous,
it doesn't have the depth,
yeah, if the previous building commissioner used that circle as the
Correct.
definition.
I do believe that that's what they used in this case, yes. They showed a building circle and it fit here. Now, every other lot on Lakes Ferry Landing, you can fit, it meets the requirement of lot depth other than this one. This is the 21 Elm Street. So 21 Elm Street and 33 Elm Street are the closest, situations to what happened here at Juniper. This is the resultant, and the other one was kind of the opposite. The old house was, I think, left on the other one, and this was the new house was put on this lot. This lot completely conformed. The lot here again was kind of the same sort of triangle, came around behind this lot, and that one didn't meet the lot depth requirement, but I believe that's, if I remember correctly, I think that was the existing structure there, so I think that's kind of why that one happened. This is Poor Preacher's Path. This one is a corner lot, so it has two street lines, and they use Plain Street as the frontage, so this is the front line. So the rear line is considered this line here. So at some point between the front line and the rear line, they need lot depth for an R2 zone, which was 125, which they were able to achieve for the required lot width. They fit the building within the circle, and the building also met the front yard setbacks along a street line for more than 40 feet. So this one fully complies because this is the frontage and the front line for this property.
Andrew, could you go back to the Elm Street properties? Show both properties?
Which one, I'm sorry?
Back to the Elm Street, the corner of Elm and Bowles, and show both properties?
Yeah.
Not that one, but the other one?
I'm gonna try to bring that up. Sorry, just give me 1 second. I'll have that back up. This here, right, Kevin?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one.
All right. So it was proposed as well. So this is a very similar situation. I believe that this is the second one that was issued in error because again, you would have had to have the 80-foot lot width and then maintain that lot width for the required 100 feet of lot depth. So this is actually a very similar situation to the exact one that's in front of you tonight. Everything else about this lot completely complies with zoning except for the required lot depth. But I just don't think it was a condition like that Jerry looked at it in 2013, whenever this one was issued. Like the permit for this one was issued, I think then. I think there was an electrical service or something that was started earlier than that, but I don't think actually construction started until later.
I think that was Bob Wiley.
Okay. When it was first, the subdivision was all happened in 2001 with Bob, but I don't think the actual construction of the house began until several years later.
But if the lot was created, when the subdivision was created, they wouldn't have created a non-buildable lot. So that's 3 building commissioners that have interpreted this bylaw as creating a buildable lot.
So that, yeah, but the process of doing an A&R doesn't have anything to do with zoning and whether it's a buildable lot. All they are concerned about is whether it has sufficient frontage on a way.
Andrew, were all of those signed off on by the planning board? Meaning that to get a building permit, the planning board has to agree that this is accurate, correct?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, look, like I said, the only 2 that I found were that didn't meet the same condition was this one specifically. This lot, the other lot next to it, completely complied with lot depth. You can see it goes back 100 feet, maintains that 80 feet of width for that 100 feet. If that was right here, that would be the same thing. But that's this. So this one, 31 elm or 33 elm, and 21 White's Ferry Landing were the only 2 that I felt were issued in error, both by different building commissioners. I don't know what the sign-off process was at that point. There wasn't digital like we have now. They don't really have the records that we keep now, and I couldn't find any records. So like sign-offs in order to get the permit, all I could find was like the sign-offs at the end of the permit, and planning board wasn't included in any of that. They usually are not at the end of it anyway.
I don't think the planning board's the final arbiter of what is or is not buildable.
No, I know, I just wanted to know if I know from my personal self from getting building permits,
Yeah.
they have to sign off and agree. Even back then, there were hand signatures on there.
There's a lot
Before
more
you could even put a
collaboration
foundation in the
on
ground.
Yeah. But like I said, so, they've got a point, like, there were previous building commissioners that I do believe just didn't read it properly or just issued an error because somebody else had done it before. And I think that they unfortunately were given the wrong guidance, and they acted on it as anybody would. So, if that's a hardship significant enough to grant a variance, that's that. But like I said, the only condition it doesn't meet is the lot depth. Similar to this one, similar to some of these others.
They could have just have a different interpretation than you too. It didn't have to be an error, it could just be their interpretation of.
True.
Right, okay.
And look, and the thing about, and this is what Bob always says, nobody appealed that determination, nobody appealed that decision to issue the permit. And so that's, and it's not a precedence thing,
Right.
Do you have anything, Bob, there?
Andrew and I don't always agree, but we unfortunately agree on this. I think lot width and lot depth are 2 different concepts. And I think this particular lot demonstrates that there are many times you can have a lot that complies with the lot width requirements that don't comply with the lot depth requirements. But I acknowledge that Mr. Folkart gave an opinion that's been relied upon to the detriment to the applicant, and significant funds have been expended in reliance on that. And I have seen variances granted in those circumstances. I got one in Duxbury last year for a similar circumstance, where the applicant changed his position in reliance, spent significant money. In the case in Duxbury, the lot didn't have enough lot depth. It was a lot depth issue. A house had been built on the lot. They were nearing occupancy when the building inspector realized that the decision was wrong. So I think that the appropriate way to deal with it is to side with Andrew and to consider granting a variance, affording the relief.
Yeah, we're gonna hear from the public now. Mike wanted them to go up to that podium, but we're not gonna do that today.
I don't think there's a microphone up
There
there
isn't,
anyways.
so.
So
if
you can
anyone
probably
would like-
ask, if somebody wants to speak into the microphone, you can probably ask them to step back.
Yeah. Does anyone want to speak?
Oh, we'd like to speak.
Yeah, so could,
She-
you have to go over to the
Does she have
microphone. Well, we're not gonna be able, they can't hear them in the audience.
You could
Well,
ask Attorney DeLisi and Mr. McDonough to step back.
oh, okay, hold on. Yeah, Kevin and Jeff, would you guys mind if you sat down so we could let these people, so they can have the microphone without having to speak? Okay, so we just need your name and address for the record.
My name is Mark Sills, I live at 31 Dwight Road, and this is my wife Carol Hurd.
We're the direct abutters directly behind who are most affected by the lot depth requirement. And we're also the people that didn't get the notice till last Monday night in our mailbox.
So you're that angle piece? You're
yeah,
that,
the house is going to be on top of us. It's going to completely affect the value of our house and any.
Andrew, is there any way you could pull up
Yep.
on the GIS?
And we're at a disadvantage too because Mr. McDonough has his attorney, you have our attorney. We did not have enough time. The only attorneys we have used are Mr. Stiles, who can't represent us. We've used Mr.
But we're
Warrenborn.
gonna leave the record open
We
if you
will,
want to
so we
submit.
could. Okay, thank you.
So
Where
where are you?
Where are you in this?
Right there.
Right there.
Okay. So this is you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So we bought the house in 2018 when there was just a single-family lot behind us, and the previous owner apparently sold it to us because this was going to be such a great detriment to her quality of life in the house and the value of our home. And we came in unaware that these plans were in the work, unfortunately. Our deck, our house sits as far back, I think, on the lot as it can, and our deck would be a very short distance from the back of the home that Mr. McDonough is going to construct. It, like I said, it would just completely change life as we know it in our house. We have no right to the views, I know, but it's a situation where we wouldn't really be able to put up a fence or anything to get privacy because we would obstruct any view. It just unalterably will affect our life in our home, and the house will be incredibly close to the corner of our deck, and it's all right directly behind our living area, our kitchen window, and it's just, we were shocked at the way the lot, he has every legal right to do it, you pay for your lawyers, the way the lot is constructed in a super pork chop manner where it goes around on the other side, leaving this land that, you know, nobody will be able to maintain in between the homes. And we just feel like he's trying to push the limit, and we're the ones suffering. When we read his attorney's letter, it was so upsetting. He said this would cause no detriment to anyone and no substantial detriment to others, and that's, we're going to suffer a terrible detriment to our lives. This is our one and only house. This is my retirement money. This is something we came into thinking we were making a good investment, and it greatly affects us. And we're very sorry for Mr. McDonough's expenditures, but we do have, there are several legal cases in the state of Massachusetts where you can't call it a hardship, what Mr. McDonough, the money he has spent, it's a self-created hardship, and there are several precedent cases that I feel terrible, as I'm sure, but he's not suffered hardship. He's trying to make money off of the lot and to maximize his investment, which I also understand.
Which we understand is
He's
his
a
right.
businessman.
We understand that.
But it affects, we're the small fish in the pond, and it greatly, greatly affects our life.
We also are going on the letter that is in this packet that was sent on April 23rd from Andrew Stewart to Mr. McDonough, stating clearly the case and why he felt, and again, perhaps it's a matter of interpretation. Things change over time, I suppose, in terms of how someone might interpret something that was done in previous years. But we didn't necessarily come here to argue the logistics, if you will. I think Mr. Stewart has pretty much clearly stated that. So we just felt, in terms of any legal representation, we had spoken to someone. They supposedly are on their way back this evening. We at least want to consult with someone. It's not as if we couldn't close this evening. We just feel very strongly about this variance. It affects us, and we understand it's business, but the detriment piece bothered us. It is a detriment to us, and we are part of the public, if you will, even though we are individual residents. It does affect us greatly, and it affects the value of our land, the value of our property, and we're getting older. I'm semi-retired. Carol isn't too far back behind me. We'll probably downsize at some point to lose value in this property. Again, keeping in mind he has the right to develop, but there's too many, in our opinion, too many little things that were cut-cornered and cookie-cutted and all this kind of stuff to make this thing fit. This thing will be literally in our backyard, and we heard first it was going to be the back of the house facing us, with the doorway facing the Juniper Road. Then we were told through people that have knowledge of this, that to turn the house, so the left side of the house was facing us. All these kinds of things, and it just seems like there's all these, everything's in motion. There's a lot of moving pieces, and we feel unprotected. We feel more so if we had legal representation, probably, just at least to get a legal opinion, if you will. We don't want to drag this out. It affects us. We don't want it. We're sorry that it came about this way, but we have to look out for our lives as well as, he has the right to look out for his. So we mean no disrespect at all, but we're gonna fight for ourselves and stand up for ourselves.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else care to speak?
Yeah, can I just sit here so I can project? Or do you have to record it?
Well, it's because we have to get in the
Okay.
with the audience.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, and I'm probably not qualified to speak. I do live at 26 Dwight Road, so I'm across the street from Juniper and that. But I guess my concern is
Oh,
this.
get name and address.
Oh, Dana Tolan, 26 Dwight Road. So I guess, does Mr. McDonough have recourse from someone else for the error that was made? I mean, or can he subdivide the lot backwards? I mean, would that be more equitable? Because I'm just worried, like, if my son is here jaded, like, so there were 2 errors made in town by 2 different inspectors, correct?
We don't know that was
Yeah,
done.
the interpretation and that, right?
Well,
But
it's
it
been-
seems
we're not-
that we set a precedent in town.
Nobody's saying there's an error.
Okay. But if there was, right, in terms of granting.
It's a difference of opinion from what we
Okay.
understand.
But I'm just wondering, it sounds like we're allowing, to use the precedent of the past, like an error, to use that as precedent to moving forward to do something else.
Well, it's not an error. We're
Again, we're not sure.
looking
So
at
it's
it.
Yeah,
It's the way they interpret the language in front of
Yeah.
them is different.
okay.
So,
I just wanted to say that, I didn't know if there was another solution, maybe redivide the lot, so it's like, fair to everyone. Thank you, sorry.
sorry.
I have just one additional comment, if you
All
don't
right,
mind. I
just, but
apologize.
hold on. We want to
Please.
see if anyone else wants to speak
Okay,
first.
my apologies.
Just briefly, Michelle Glidden, 48 Juniper Road, so directly across. Kevin has the right to, with the property. Juniper is a very sweet little, quiet little road. It's whatever they've called, an unincorporated road or whatever. It's not a 2-lane road. And it's a quiet little road. So with that house, the last time I got a notice also there was road widening, and that will change the character of the beginning of the road. So it's not only his home, but it will also change the character of the house. I've lived there for 33 years. So I'm concerned with the character of the road changing. I'm directly across and we live on a hill, and I've never had drainage problems, but I am concerned for my property if the road is widened and then I'm all of a sudden going to have water in my yard. I haven't had that. At one point, the road was repaired by the town, and I had water in my yard, and they had to come out and put a berm in where it was. So these are just things that happen. It changes the place that you've lived, and a person has a right to do the house, but it affects. This is a very quiet little street, and it affects it. So I'm concerned both changing the character of what the road has looked like, and also drainage properties, and is the road going to be widened on my side of the street or his side of the street? I called about this when it came up a year ago, and at the time, the person that I spoke to said it was going to be on that side of the street, but the street widening is a big concern for me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone in the audience out there? No?
Online.
Online audience, anyone? Andrew, is there anyone out there?
Not that I can see.
Okay.
I just wanted to mention that up here, the road won't be altered. This roadway has already seen street improvements. If there are any street improvements that are happening, it's happening down on this end of Juniper, not this end.
Okay.
Just lastly, Mark Sills, there was in the packet, there was a letter sent from Mr. McDonough's attorney to, I'm not sure, the zoning board, I'm not sure, but basically stated in the event that he didn't gain variance and lost the appeal this evening, if there were a vote taken, that he already has a second appeal in the works. It's stated in there somewhere. I don't have it, I didn't bring it, but if you look at the letter, it clearly states that. And my question is, based on what? What would he base it on? What would he base a second similar appeal to the board if in fact he didn't go back and had to make some changes schematically? And if that were the case, isn't that something that would go then before the building commission again? I just want to know what he could possibly base another variance appeal on. Thank you.
You want to answer that, Bob?
I don't think I can speak for somebody else. I don't know what was envisioned.
Do we have a copy of that?
Yeah, no,
We all do.
I think I can clarify.
Thank you. Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
I sent a cover letter with my application seeking an appeal of the determination of Andrew, or by Andrew, and in the alternative, seeking a variance. So I'm not appealing a variance, I'm not appealing anything else. There's only one thing to appeal here, that's Andrew's determination. Should the board agree with Andrew, or should the board not grant the relief that I'm seeking with respect to the appeal of the determination, then I would ask the board to consider a variance application. And just to kind of pivot, now that I've answered that, I think Mr. McDonough is entitled to consistency in interpretation. We have 3 building inspectors who clearly have interpreted this in the manner in which I've set forth. And that is that apparently they've determined in previous instances, and in this instance, that lot depth has to be measured through required lot width. And I understand and respect Andrew's position and Bob's position on that, but you're the board, and you make the decision. And this family has spent $398,000 in reliance on that determination.
Well, plus.
With all of the costs associated with it.
Because I'm sure you're not cheap, Jeff.
I'm here for fairness.
Yeah, for the entertainment.
So I think that,
I don't think we're gonna
I-
need fairness.
I think the board should discuss my first request, which is the appeal, and then consider my second request. We can take that up on its merits, should the board deny. And with respect to the question of whether notice was proper or not, I'm willing to fall on that, because I know it was proper, and I don't see any reason why a public hearing for my client should be continued to allow somebody else to be represented by counsel when they've had the statutory timeframe within which to arrange for counsel, and that didn't happen apparently.
We did
We had 5
not-
working
we had-
days.
Hold on. You have to speak through.
Yes, sir, I'm sorry.
That's it.
Okay.
We have the postmark envelope.
I do too.
We received it last Tuesday night, the 16th. I spoke with Nancy Pareca's office today, I spoke with her, and I mentioned the situation to her, asking what is the required time of notification. She said 2 weeks. We didn't get 2 weeks, we had 1 week. We've spoken with 2 attorneys that we know, for a reference, if you will, not engaging them as our attorney. We were referred by Mark Stiles, who closed our mortgage, and obviously was, he has a conflict here. But he referred us to another attorney who's been out of town, and we were told was back in. Carol spoke with him last night. We'd at least like to run this by him. Are we gonna really change a lot of what we said here tonight? No, probably not, but Carol and I owe it to each other to not make a determination on our own, say, oh, we don't need an attorney. The other 2 attorneys we spoke to said, make sure you get an attorney. So we did not receive, because based in what newspaper was it posted? Sorry if we don't read the Marshfield paper. We didn't see it, we don't get it. So we should have been given, that letter should have arrived at our house 2 weeks prior, on the, whatever it is, the 11th of May, not the 16th. They gave us 5 working days to tonight, which is the 23rd. So we did not receive proper notice.
How does that work?
In my opinion, notice was proper.
Was proper.
Yes.
Okay.
The publication requirement requires the first notice of the public hearing to be published at least 14 days prior to the hearing for 2 consecutive weeks, and that occurred. And it does not similarly require that notice be mailed 2 weeks in advance. Although abutters and parties in interest are entitled to written notice according to the assessor's maps.
Right, 'cause
And
how
that
would we
was
know?
given. But the 14-day requirement specifically, it's to publication, not to notice otherwise.
Publication where? In what?
In-
What, I mean,
Chapter 48, section.
what newspaper?
Bob's explaining it.
Okay, I listened carefully, I didn't hear any particular.
Chapter 48, section 11 will provide all the answers that we need. and you can
Oh, no,
discuss
sir,
that.
we just wondered if it was in the Mariner, evidently.
Yeah. Nancy, can you tell me?
The coastal mariner.
Coastal Mariner.
It has to be a newspaper of general circulation.
We understand, we understand that, but what in the event of we don't get that paper? We're gonna be held accountable?
It's just that we were just at a disadvantage. We don't have experience with these things, and we weren't even afforded enough time to educate ourselves and get counsel with some of these things to be able to present our case effectively, and it was just very difficult. This whole process has been difficult, hanging over our heads because it so greatly affects our life. And last summer, we came in and we spoke with Mr. Stewart, and we saw the letter where the lot was deemed unbuildable. And we kind of put faith in that. We thought you had faith in your building commissioner. He's the current building commissioner. And if the rules were misinterpreted in the past, that doesn't mean we should continue to misinterpret them. This might be the chance to set things right and follow the law as it's stated. And he's our official, and we're just begging that you agree with his decision and protect. These laws are in effect to protect the citizens of Marshfield, to protect the homeowners. That's the reason for these width and setback requirements. They're there to protect us, and if they go ahead and they get a variance on this, it's directly going against the intent of the law. The intent of the law is to protect people like us from something like this happening in our backyard on a lot that really has been deemed to be an unbuildable lot by our current building commissioner. And because something's wrong in the past doesn't mean we should continue to go forward with it in the future. This could be the time to set it right, so in the future these small lots are not built upon and they're left as natural land or as part of the original lot, and that's a benefit to everyone.
With all due respect, and I appreciate your perspective, I've been involved with zoning for about 27 years in various capacities, sitting on zoning boards. This is my second town that I've sat on a zoning board. And my experience with gentlemen like Mr. McDonough is that they don't go quietly into the good night. And were I you, I'd rather have one home as an abutter than a 4-unit condo. Think about that. I'm not saying that that's what's being threatened.
Yes, it is a
But from my perspective,
Take this, this is the best deal you're gonna get.
From
We don't
my
appreciate that.
perspective.
It's pretty clear where your sentiments lie here, sir.
So Bob, do you want to respond to this?
So, hold on one second, just, I mean, he's making a point, let him finish the point. and then-
From my perspective,
And then,
you
Yes, sir.
need to consider all of your options. That's my point.
And that's why we would like to have an attorney, because we aren't adept legally at this sort of thing, and we're not going to just let it pass tonight and say, oh my God, what didn't we do? And I think we have, and I understand the explanation of whatever it is, but I'm sorry, we don't read the Mariner, I guess on a regular basis. I asked specifically today, how many days before should we receive notification in the mail? And Nancy's been very, very helpful, and there's nothing thrown in her direction at all. But I was told it was 2 weeks. I was told it was 2 weeks, and so therefore, in my opinion, we did not get proper notification. Listen, we're not looking to drag this out. We want to get, either way, and I said to Carol, however this goes, let's just get this done, because it's been resting over our head like a sword since we bought the house, and we're tired of it. We're tired of looking out in the backyard wondering when the sword's gonna fall. Enough already. If Mr. McDonough gets his variance, okay, fine. Nothing we can do about it, we'll go on with our lives. Okay? But I think we have the right to at least make another contact with this attorney tomorrow, who we were referred to, just so we can get his final opinion, and we can say this is, he'll easily be able to access what went on and what was discussed here tonight. And if he, but to say, hey, listen, maybe this is the best deal you can get, take what you can get, I'm sorry, that's a little, not only insulting, but I find it threatening. We have rights, and I think we should be afforded the right to have an attorney.
So, Bob.
Thank you.
So there are ways to develop this in accordance with the bylaw, and there are ways to avoid the requirements of the bylaw, and I think that was the point that Mr. Sullivan was bringing up. I know of a specific circumstance in another town where someone had an undersized lot. It actually had a house built on it. The building inspector failed to realize that the lot was not buildable. The house was already constructed, ready to be occupied. The building inspector received a complaint from the neighbor. The house was ordered torn down, and there's a 4-unit 40B, and I think that's the point that Mr. Sullivan was making. He wasn't saying that was going to happen, okay, but he was making the point that there are ways to avoid these lot depth requirements because they're not required to be adhered to with a different type of a development. That's it. Okay, and Mr. McDonough has no way, shape, or form threatened anyone or mentioned that he was even interested in doing that, and that might not even be the possibility.
No, I didn't.
That was the context.
Okay. All right, thank you for the answer. So now we'll move with the board. We've heard from the audience, we've heard from the live audience. How do you feel tonight about at least answering the part of this with whether or not we believe the appeal? Up or down?
I move to close the hearing.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's,
And then we can discuss how I feel
Okay.
that Andrew made a mistake.
so I'm gonna make a motion to close, 2339.
Somebody else wants to?
Oh,
No, I was just gonna say, if we close the hearing, does that preclude them from having counsel in 2 weeks?
no, not 2 weeks, we can,
Whatever the speed.
we can leave the record open for a letter from their counsel.
Okay, well, then you don't close the hearing.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
think we need to-
that's right.
You can't
You
close
can,
it.
you can leave the record open so that you can receive an additional communication from the lawyer. But if you're gonna leave that record open, then it's only fair that Mr. DeLisi, Attorney DeLisi and Mr. McDonough get a chance to respond.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that you not close the hearing if you're gonna do it that way and decide it in 2 weeks.
So do we leave everything up, or do we make a determination on Andrew's letter, or just leave it alone till we?
We have closed the hearing and left the written record open.
Yeah, the written record open, that's what I'd like.
But that doesn't allow debate, it's just a letter from
Just
them,
leaving the written
any letter
record.
from the other side. That's it.
Well, that's what I'm asking.
Okay, you can do that. You can
No,
close the
And leave the
record,
written.
leaving the written record open for the submission of a letter
Right.
from counsel for the abutters and a response from the
No,
applicant.
but, right, because we were told prior to Mr. McDonough and council showing up that we were gonna put it off till June 13th, and Carol and I said, well, what, you know, and then as I was out in the hallway, Nancy came out and said, if you wanna make some comments, and we'll leave the record open.
The written
Not-
record.
No, it was not specified as the written record.
Well, you continue to say it is this and that. Bob's explained to you what the rules are of notice. But you understand the rules of notice, right?
I
I'm assuming.
understand what he's saying.
Okay, now he's the town attorney.
I
So
understand.
whatever Nancy said, Bob is saying, as the town attorney and the expert in that
Mhm.
division, what he's saying is what we're listening.
Okay, so what are you saying that you would consider doing?
You haven't spoken yet.
We're still
I
talking
haven't,
about it.
Scott Haley, 36 Juniper Road. I believe at the beginning of the hearing, the town council said he would recommend that you hear it and leave the hearing open. It wasn't specified whether you leave it open for written stuff only or whatever. It was recommended that you would leave it open.
So that's why we will make that decision. That's why we're the board.
Yeah, it's fine, just, you're talking about the recommendation of town council, and I think that's what everybody heard, he said, leave it open.
But that's what my interpretation is, the written record is open.
Yeah,
That's what we've done in the
interpretation, right.
past.
Like we're interpreting the 2 sentences for lot depth, right? That's not really anything that needs to be interpreted, it's just statements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so how does the board feel about
So
closing?
just- Mr. Chair?
Yeah.
One comment. If the board is going to leave the record open for written submissions, I would ask that the board think about putting timeframes on the submission times. I'm going to need enough time to review, research, and write a response, which means that any letter that comes to the board should be received by the board by a certain date, and I think that we should establish that if you're going to go down that road. And I think it's fair to ask for 10 days in advance of the hearing, so I have time to respond.
Nancy, when's the next meeting?
June 13th,
June 13th.
so it's actually 3 weeks.
3 weeks? So that we can leave, give his attorney 10 days to get it to us, and then you'll have 10 days to get your response in.
Yeah.
Okay?
I think it's a reasonable request. I do
too.
What bothers me about it is that there has been enough time, and we've heard statements that indicate that 3 lawyers have been
Yeah, we don't need to get into that, that's fine.
dealt with.
You
So-
made your point.
Thank you. All right, so,
The other attorney need to have something about it sick. So do we not deal with Andrew's stuff, or we just wait on everything?
no, then, by doing this, this is where we are.
The
Then we
public
wait.
hearing will be closed except for the written submissions from the abutters. They'll have up to 10 days before the hearing. And then Mr. DeLisi, Attorney DeLisi will have time to respond, and anybody can receive copies of either of those letters by contacting Ms. Pareca. And then you'll decide everything.
On the next hearing. So we're no, June 6th, I think you said?
June 13th is the next meeting.
No, but June 6th.
10
submissions.
days, 10 days is June 2nd.
Oh, June
10
2nd.
days starting tomorrow.
Prior to the
So
meeting.
June 2nd, we'll have the
Is that
submissions in.
business
That's a
days
Friday.
or regular days?
That's 10 days.
10 days.
Okay, can we exclude the holiday out of that at least? 'Cause-
No.
No. So let's close the hearing, leaving the written record, well, everyone's okay with closing, right? Let's close the hearing, leaving the written record open to hear from council from the abutters up to June 2nd, and then that'll go to Jeff beyond that.
And also, I would ask the board consider, because I have an alternative request, and I certainly wouldn't want to close the hearing and foreclose the ability to make that alternative argument to you about a variance. However, I did make that argument in writing. So
Right.
if you're comfortable with reviewing what I had written, that's fine.
Yeah, but I think we're just closing
Okay.
the appeal part, we're not closing the variance, correct, Bob?
It's up to you. You
Yeah.
can close, you could leave one open, we can close one.
Yeah.
Close the appeal.
That's what I'm thinking. So I'm gonna make a motion that we close.
And before we get there, turning to Lisi's response, shouldn't it be due back on a certain date to their, you know what I mean, rather than just before the hearing?
Yeah, no, in my mind, typically what I do is 48 hours in advance. But
So-
if you're gonna ask me to submit it a week in advance,
So we're
Yeah,
gonna,
I want, whatever, just, I want there to
Then-
be a time frame.
then I'll need enough time, right?
Yeah, if you get it on the 2nd is 10 days, you've got to respond in a week. That gives you until the 9th, which is 2 days before the hearing, well, 2 business days before the hearing, which is on the 13th.
Okay.
all right,
Does that work?
sounds like we get it hashed out. So I'm
So
gonna
on
make-
by the 9th.
Their lawyer gets 10 days, you get a week.
Can we just go over the time frame again?
Yes.
So by the 2nd?
June 2nd, then June 9th, Jeff's got to send his response.
Yes. But we're gonna close it and then make those amendments.
Okay.
So I make a motion that we close 2339, Kevin McDonough on the appeal end of this request. Do I have a second? And with the time frame being, the abutters have till June 2nd to get back to Nancy with their information. Attorney DeLisi would then have to June 9th to get back to the abutters, and then whatever they provide prior to the meeting on June 13th would be acceptable. All leaving the written record open only. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Time coming.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
So Brian, just one more thing, are you gonna move to continue the?
I'll move to continue the variance to June 13th.
Second.
All in favor?
Brian Sullivan, aye?
Brian Murphy, aye. Steve?
Aye, sorry about that.
Larry Keane, aye.
All right, so now we still have, is the Live Creative people here?
I don't see them at the
Did they get their relief from the selectmen?
Andrew wrote something up.
I drafted a license, and I believe it was on the agenda. If you give me 1 minute, I can find out.
See, David, you put it in line.
Andrew, is anyone here from the Live people?
I spoke to Tom earlier today. He's working the line tonight, and then, so he wasn't gonna be able to come over here. But, I did talk to him today, and, he doesn't really have a whole lot to add, other than the fact that, he's just seeking to legitimize this area to comply with the, alcohol beverage commission, really. The area is town-owned property, so they required the approval of the select board with a licensing agreement. And like I said, I believe last night they voted to approve it based off of the licensing agreement and ZBA site plan approval.
Sweet.
Yeah, Mr. Maresco just texted me that by unanimous vote of the select board, they approved the license, and it was subject to the zoning board of appeals approving the site plan.
Move to grant the site plan special permit
So
as filed?
Second? All in favor?
Larry Keane, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Heidi Comer.
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Is that it? Is there anything else tonight?
Just the 2 minutes.
Oh, approve of the minutes?
Yeah.
Larry?
Move to approve as written.
Move to approve. Second? All in favor?
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Comer.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Move to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Brian Sullivan, aye.
Heidi Comer.
Brian Murphy, aye.
Steve Feeney, aye.
Larry Keane, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Andrew.